Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Strange Reality with Dave Emmons, where I have interesting guests. And I have guests who come back on repeatedly. And this guy today from the UK, he's one of my faves. I guess I'm older. I shouldn't say fave. I guess that's for the young people to say. But yes, but and with everything going on in the world, I mean, we talk off air and stuff, but everything going on in the world right now and this disclosure thing with ETs, UFOs, we can't help sometimes to get into the weeds on things. But my guest today is Stephen Mera. He's an investigative researcher, a journalist on anomalous phenomena, a researcher and a lecturer who conducts experiments. Steve works with paranormal mechanics. He's got boots on the ground, in other words, an author of several books and serves as the spokesman for subject-related TV documentaries. He is a tutor of the UFO Investigators training course. He has hosted over 300 international TV shows, plus including Fox TV, Hammer Productions, and numerous organizations. Stephen has been investigating for 40 years and has a Bachelor of Science degree. And he's into the Phenomena magazine, UK, and he's also Fox TV, co.uk, and he's also the witness of another world.com, and his books are on Amazon. And Stephen Mera, nice seeing you, buddy.
Good to see you, Dave. It's always
It's
good to
been,
catch up.
yeah, the holiday scheduling and your schedule and everything. I finally got you in
Yeah.
before the end of January, and I'm glad to do that. But
No,
uh,
it's always busy.
Stephen Mera from the UK, tell us what's going on in your mind today and what your thoughts are at
Well,
the
do you
present
know
time.
what? It's just, there's just so much confusion in the ranks, should we say, regarding ufology. That terrible word where it's so confusing for
Right.
people.
Hmm.
UFOs, UAP, balls of light, call them what you will. They're all unidentified for sure. Um, you know, we knew that there were going to be some difficulties because there was a narrative change that came about maybe about a year or so ago. And we all heard that narrative change take place at Pentagon level. Nobody was talking UFOs anymore. It
Hmm.
had a new terminology. It was
Yeah.
called UAP.
Gee.
Yeah, and nobody was saying extraterrestrials or ET anymore. They were saying interdimensional. And I think, well, okay, so this is the big narrative change. I mean, it's exciting that we're living at the time of this happening. It's actually happening before our very eyes.
Hmm.
The impact we don't take on board so much, but it is a massive impact because you've got to consider why are they dropping the extraterrestrial hypothesis and replacing it with interdimensional hypothesis? And this has been documented at high level, even listed on Pentagon or US government papers.
Right. Hmm.
So, it just isn't just somebody's misguided whim of a sentence saying interdimensionals rather than extraterrestrials. No, this has been documented and it's even listed within the Arrow, which is the UAP program running out from the Pentagon. But difficult times at the moment because I'm so shocked to hear so many people, researchers, people on the inside, some of them are even at government level, suggesting that we are dealing with something. Yes, it's unidentified, but there doesn't seem to be enough evidence to support the extraterrestrial hypothesis that they're coming from some other planet. It's just like Menzel years back. He absolutely stuck to his guns all those years and said, look, they're not coming from outside our planet. They're not coming from other planets. I mean, even if they traveled at light speed, it'd take them forever to get here. And just look how many there are now. The statistically speaking, and we can't look at every country because not every country participates in sharing their information about how many UFO sightings are reported.
Right.
And some of them don't even collate that data. But we can only look at the countries that do and say, according to all that paperwork, when we look at it all and the statistics, one UFO seen between every 8 and 15 seconds worldwide on a 24-hour basis. That equates, if those statistics are true, that equates to hundreds and hundreds of thousands of UFOs worldwide on a global basis being seen. Now we always have to take in consideration that some of them are probably misidentifications of aircraft and other things in the sky, or some of them are fake reports. But then we also, on the other hand, we've also got to take into consideration how many people are seeing these things and don't report them. Probably a lot more.
Oh, lot.
Probably
Yeah,
a lot more, as you can
I know
imagine.
some. Yeah, I know some people.
Yeah,
Yes.
I do. They don't report it.
Yeah.
So you got to say, well, really, then those stats might be even more. And if where are they all coming from, Dave? Because if we've got hundreds of thousands of UFOs being seen around planet Earth on a 24-hour basis in all different countries and times, then you'd expect there's got to be a super highway of traffic passing backwards and forwards to Earth. NASA conducted a survey. They conducted research September to a couple of years ago, September 23, I think it was. And they concluded, they actually said, look, we kind of understand UFOs are seen and they're recorded and people film them and photograph them, even pilot sightings and stuff. And there's documentation and a history of this phenomenon. But we're not finding enough evidence to say they're extraterrestrial. So basically, they're looking out there, looking for the superhighway. No, the only time we really get any activities out there is, they might get the odd few that pass by the ISS, International Space Station, or when NASA was putting shuttles up there, Atlantis and other shuttles. It was, those the STS missions were filming them for sure. But but we're talking a huge amount of objects now. So where are they all coming from, Dave? There's a big
Yeah.
puzzle. So
Yeah.
Arrow was pressed to come up with an idea. Arrow at the Pentagon said, look, what's your conclusion? So they had to conduct their research and they came up with the same answer. We don't think there's enough evidence to say they're extraterrestrial. Okay, so now we've got a big void. Well, if they're not extraterrestrial, then what the hell are they? Where are they coming from? There's a number of different theories. Some people suggested, oh, maybe they're ancient, and they come from under the ground, the crypto-terrestrials. Like the stories of Lemura and hidden under the earth and these advanced civilizations. Even though that Shambhala and many other places around the world have got names for this, doesn't seem to be enough evidence to support that. Are they coming from under the sea? Have they always lived
Yeah.
under the sea?
Yeah.
We
Well,
don't know.
Stephen, I've seen some of these Congress people we have, like Luna, Comer, and then Burchard, Senator.
Yeah,
They all said that there's bases under the sea,
there is.
ET
That's
bases,
right.
and they said that they're interdimensional. But now they seem like they're pissed off because they've been told to shut up, and they're
I
not.
think, yeah,
It's not going any higher.
I don't think we're going to get any further. I just really do not. I know that there are certain people in high working areas throughout the US which are saying basically we've said too much too fast already.
Yeah.
Are saying that. Yet there's an opposing saying, look, you know what, we're not told us enough. There are people still crying out, even after watching the UAP hearing, saying, okay, so you bring another witness, and what's it going to be next time? Another witness, another pilot who's going to say, oh yes, they're real and I've seen them. Well, we don't need that anymore. We know. We don't need any more whistleblowers to tell us that phenomenon is taking place in our skies.
That's right.
You know that, Dave.
That's
I
right.
know that, Dave. So many more on the planet know this. They don't need the Pentagon to tell them that.
Right.
They want the big questions. They will never talk about in the UAP subject, in the UAP hearings. You will never get talking about contactees, people encounters, experiencers, abduction phenomena, all sorts of. You notice they don't go there. They just want to talk about UAP, possible crashed UAP, and secret programs. Well, that. What about all the other side? All these people out there in the world that have these experiences, are they wrong?
No,
No. Do you not think they deserve some answer? Yes. But they won't do it. They'll not
I don't.
go there, will
Yeah.
they?
Stephen, I don't know if you know Jeff Woolwine. I interviewed him yesterday. He's been on my show before, and he says that a lot of these orbs, these shiny things that he's been filming, he's got a lot of film of it,
Mm.
and he's being followed by black helicopters. So
Yeah.
he's been doing this for some time. But he said those are spiritual things. Those orbs, they're flying around.
Well,
What is that a good theory that you're thinking of,
well,
Stephen?
let me tell you, Dave, what I know at the top end when the people I work with, and they've already concluded what these things are. The ball of lights that we are seeing manifesting and doing different things in the sky seems to represent the true phenomenon. Like, that's more likely the real face of the phenomena. They're sentient, they're intelligent, there's spiritual aspects to them.
Mhm.
But there's also the appearance of what you might refer to as physiological constructs, such as physical craft, which are also appear. But that seems to be something separate. You know, it seems that the ball of light phenomena predates a lot of this stuff. It goes back so many years into ancient times, and it's still interacting. The balls of light are interactive,
Mhm.
and they can, people can experience these things. So when people are saying now, when they contact me and say, "Steve, we saw a UFO," I'm saying, "Well, okay, so what was it?" "Well, it was a ball of light." So we're getting more of that, of the I believe the true face of the phenomenon, than we are getting craft now. We still get craft, don't get me wrong. People report seeing them or filming, photographing them, but nowhere near the amount of light phenomena that's being seen. I mean, that is really ramped up on a global basis.
And you think maybe that's just a cover that the ETs don't want to expose themselves any more than what they are? Or is that a government and ET contract that they're going by for disclosure reasons and for population
Well,
reasons?
I don't think the phenomenon wants to disclose. How long is this phenomenon?
Yeah.
As long as we know, it's been going on forever. You know,
Mhm.
And in all that time, Dave, right through the First World War and the Second World War and the Vietnam War and all these times, not once have they wanted to disclose. They don't want to disclose, do they?
No.
The phenomenon itself is wants to be covert, and do things like an agenda secretly operating throughout the skies and interacting with people. They don't want to disclose. Otherwise, it could all happen today. They could come down on the White House lawn and that's it. It's all out. It's all done.
Yeah.
Disclosure happens.
And
They're in charge of it. But no, that doesn't seem to be the case, does it?
yeah, no, I mean, some years ago, like say in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and probably up to now, you had the men in black who were intimidating
Hmm?
people who saw things. So that means somebody, or both agents or ETs, are trying to stop the flow of information and even
Well,
influencers
yeah,
like
you're
you,
right.
Stephen, and myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
early Men in Black incidents though were very profound, as if they weren't human. So maybe in this case, it was the phenomenon, cleaning up after themselves.
Mhm.
Making sure that people don't talk, don't show photographs or this, that, and the other. But I think it's just got to the point where they don't care anymore because of some of these experiences can happen in cities and they don't seem to care that people are seeing them and filming them.
Right.
I think they just don't
Yeah,
bother.
the lame excuse that a lot of scientists that are probably pro government in this disclosure thing are saying they can't get here. It's too many light years. You mentioned that earlier, Stephen.
Well,
Too many
yeah, but
light
that's
years
if we
right here.
that's our physics, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but they come through wormholes. They come
Yeah,
through portals.
it's
And
instant.
yeah, our scientists who do quantum theory, they figured that all out, haven't they, Stephen?
No,
Yeah.
yeah, but they won't go there. They just will not go. They definitely want to stay away at any high level, and they won't talk about quantum mechanics. They just want to completely steer away from quantum mechanics. It scares them, I think. But the aspect is that we really do have to take a grip of this subject of quantum mechanics because it's going to answer a lot of the problems that we just can't resolve. We
Mhm.
need to. It's going to have to. It's going to happen. We have to go to incorporate quantum mechanics. If they like it or not, at some point, it's going to have to happen.
Yeah, it's going to. And I hope I've seen physical craft. I mean, you were talking about that
Yeah,
too. I've
yeah,
seen. I didn't see any nuts and bolts. I saw smooth craft metal, the metallic. Some of them gray,
mm,
a dark
yeah.
gray. Some of them silver gray. And so yeah, I've seen them. But the orbs I've seen a lot of, and I don't pay much mind to, like we were talking about. But Stephen, to get into more deeper things, you mentioned an incident in 1995, was it? You said that
Yeah,
you wanted to
actually,
talk about.
well,
Yeah,
it's a
let's.
very interesting time
Yeah.
because I investigated a case back in 1995, and he was a gentleman called Sid Barnes. Now, Sid at that time was probably in his mid 70s, and Sid was a very, very clever mechanic engineer. Really, really knew his stuff. But he was posted in the Second World War. He was posted on an LST, a landing ship tank during the Second World War. Now, these were pretty much transporters, ship transporters, for vehicles and other things. And they were very clever, these ships. What they'd do is they'd plow into the beach, and out the back was a cannon. And on the end of that cannon was a massive big anchor on a chain. And it'd shoot it out to sea, and it'd come down and literally grab itself in. And they used to pull them back out to sea, you see. So that's the way they
Hmm.
got out. That was a landing ship tank, incredible vehicles which were used during the Second World War. Now, whilst this is taking place, Second World War, he's positioned off the coast of Sicily, and they had during that time in operations quite a number of strange things seen in the sky, which they only could believe it's like, well, we don't think it's the enemy, but they have to go into alert mode just in case,
Hmm.
because they weren't really 100% sure. Could the enemy have some of these, flying discs and stuff? But they were reported. But what they tend to do, they were just observing. They never interfered. They just parked themselves in the sky, as if like, right, I'm just going to sit here and watch it all unfold because we're interested. They seem to be monitoring the skirmishes, the battles, and constantly. So it was an operation by the phenomena to constantly monitor the technology that was being used, the skirmishes and the battles. They literally were monitoring a lot of it. The watchers, you could say, but they never, interfered in any way. And when other aircraft were around, they'd just move away. They'd just move out of range or whatever very quickly. So
You're talking Foo
well,
Fighters in World
no,
War II,
these were
Stevens.
structured crafts. These were
Okay.
structured crafts, like
Yeah.
what you've seen and I've seen. They were just people were saying these were craft like flying saucers because back in the time of the 40s, they called them. They look like flying saucers to me, they used to
Hmm.
say. But a very interesting thing took place. They just off the coast of Sicily one day. Now, Sid Barnes worked below deck, yeah, and they're out at sea and they're traveling 20, 30, 40 knots. And suddenly he hears a lot of commotion up on deck. So he goes up there. Yeah. Now the weather conditions, it's hot, very hot. Blue skies, no clouds, just beautiful. As you would expect off the coast of Sicily. And he comes up because he heard all this fussing going on. He climbs up the ladders, comes
Hmm.
out onto deck, and he's blinded temporarily because it's very dark below. And he notices that there's loads of people up on the deck looking up at the sky and pointing. And he looks up and he said, what I saw was profound. He said, I saw what can only be described as a city in the sky. So of course, you got to imagine. I'm sat. I'm sat. This is 1995, I think, 96, and I'm sat there with Sid Barnes, lovely guy, in his home with a big recorder, video recorder, big old ones. You
Yeah.
had to put
Yeah.
a
Big
full
ones.
size cassette tape in, and I'm interviewing him. I'm trying to figure out, and he's saying, yeah, I was trying to figure out what this could be because it was so weird. So I said, well, tell me a little bit more about it. What's I mean, obviously it's strange to see a vision of something in the sky like a
Hmm.
city. I said, but I immediately said to him, do you think it's some type of a temperature inversion? There's one called Fata Morgana where you can actually see sometimes buildings appear in the sky, and it's some type of temperature inversion that causes an image to appear in the sky. And he said, well, do you know what? I came back after the war and I went looking I even went through all the Reader's Digests and, you know, different types of magazines and things. And I just wanted to try and figure out. I was reading everything on temperature inversions and Fata Morgana and all these things. And I said, and he said, it just didn't make sense. It doesn't add up. So as I'm talking to him, he's explaining that they're on deck and what they can see in the sky before them in vivid detail is a city, but no ordinary city. Taking in consideration it's what 1943 or something like that. The city looks to be completely made of marble,
Mm.
including turret walls, fountains in the street, the buildings, everything looked to be like a white marble. Quite strange.
Yeah.
I said, well, what else did you see? He said, well, I'm seeing horse-drawn carts. No cars, no vehicles, no street lights, nothing like that. It was like something from the past. I said, well, I saw children, could clearly see children playing in the street with each other. You could see a fountain there, and it was so clear you could literally see the water coming out of the fountain.
Hmm.
I said, and the buildings with these turrets on, it's like, mind him a bit like a castle, but marble, a marble castle. I mean, you don't make castles out of marble.
Yeah.
Marble's too difficult and very
Yes.
expensive. So they just wouldn't. Marble. And he said, yeah, and they had these flags on them. It's because you could see any details on it. I couldn't make it out. He said, but I'm seeing a thoroughfare and it's going stretching down a street. And I can see people in old clothing, from the period of the, say, Victorian days, uh, long dresses, women, and well-dressed men with hats and, and suits on and horse-drawn carriages. All I'm saying, it's out of time.
Sounds
It
like
doesn't.
Tartarian.
Yeah,
Tartarian. Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to himself, what the hell are you seeing? And he said, I said, so how long did you see it for? A few minutes or what? Oh no, we saw this for a few hours. What? Yeah, we all were on deck. And taking in consideration, we're still moving at 40 knots across the water. It stayed on our starboard side. We could see it in the sky in the same position for about 3 hours. I said, doesn't make any sense. That's so strange. I said, and tell me, how did it come to an end? He said, well, that was the weirdest thing, he said, because it was a perfect picture. It wasn't hazy. It was like looking at a TV screen, he said, and it took up the whole side of the sky on the starboard side of the boat. And he said, and then all of a sudden, what looked to be like a jigsaw piece of the image disappears. And you just see the blue sky behind it. Then another little jigsaw piece disappears. And over a period of 20 minutes, these little pieces, little jigsaw piece here, jigsaw piece there, and eventually you could just see 2 or 3 jigsaw pieces in the sky, still things in it moving around. Eventually they go. So what the hell? So I thought, well, do you know what, Sid? I'm going to have to try and get to the bottom of this because I've never heard anything like this in my life. I'm thinking to myself, well, this doesn't sound like it's a temperature inversion or Fata Morgana. I mean, I know about them, and there's some good images of them. And yes, you can get images of castles and things, but they wouldn't look like that. And it seems to be out of place for 1943. And what is that? There's no cars. Don't seem to be any electricity, no street lights and lamps, or it's like taken out from a long time ago. But nobody would feasibly because everything he said was made of like marble, a castle. I said nobody would make a marble. I don't think there's one exists on the planet.
Stephen, what is
Johnny.
your scientific opinion of that? Is that a matrix glitch, dimensional glitch? China has a lot of film of cities in the sky too. Here
Yeah, I've
lately.
seen them.
Yeah.
I've certainly seen
Yeah.
them, and there's some good images out there of these things. Um, but you know what I'm thinking? Well, maybe it's just Sid. Maybe he just didn't see it right. It's just until I listened to one guy So I made a pact with him there that I was going to hunt down, this is '96, of course, as many people as I could, which might be still alive. Now you got to take in consideration Sid, who's working on the ship, probably about 18, 19, 20 years old. Any of the higher ranking officers were more likely to be older than him, so they might not even be around anymore.
Hmm.
You know, so I managed to find four. I found
Really?
Yeah, I found an officer. I found two crewmen for the ship, including Sid, and also the captain, who was 96 years of age.
Oh.
And they all said, Steve, it was like looking at a marble city. Sid didn't make that up. He was absolutely right on his observations. It was as if the castle walls were made of a white marble. It glistened like shiny in the sun.
Mhm.
There's nowhere on earth that has a castle made of marble. Marble's very hard to work with.
Yes.
It's very expensive. And it's damn heavy. I mean, it's just not feasible. So I searched all over the earth. With the internet and everything, is because it was a very limited back in '96. I think I had just acquired it. To be honest with you, and it wasn't fantastic then. But as time's gone on, I've kept researching this, looking for a marble city, looking for a marble castle. It just don't exist, Dave. I couldn't find it. And I did manage to talk to them. They all confirmed the same thing. And I said to them, I said, can you tell me how it disappeared? Oh, yeah. He said it was like jigsaw pieces.
Same
Just
words. Yeah.
disappeared. So I decided to look into temperature inversions. Fata Morgana is probably one of the best well-known ones. And when you read the science papers behind this, how does it disappear from view? Well, sometimes it's been reported as if it just melts, as if it's like a melting goo. Sometimes it starts to swirl and become hazy and disappear. Sometimes it just fades. Not once is it ever been documented in history that little piece of puzzles of it disappear. And yet it still remains perfectly clear, the remaining little pieces of puzzles with stuff moving on them inside. You can still see the street and somebody walking past and a horse-drawn carriage and a little piece like this.
Yeah.
And it was just for 3 hours or something up on the starboard, and they all said the same thing. But interviewing this person, it was it's just like I couldn't wrap my head around it, Dave. I was interviewing him, and of course, yeah, there was some UFOs which were seen, but you'd think that would be the major thing, wouldn't it? He said, "Oh yeah, we saw UFOs." No, it was this. This
Yeah.
is what really was seen more important. That is UFO. I'm not interested in that. I'm looking at this.
Did anybody get any film of it? Maybe the captain, and they
The
couldn't take it.
the captain said there was film taken of it, but it was handed in.
Oh, that's what I was thinking, Stephen. Yeah.
He's the captain.
Yep.
It would have been somebody who was a higher ranking officer than him, I would assume. And it was filmed by several people, but on military film, because you don't go into battle taking a camera with you,
Right.
unless it's your job to take photographs, because they were very, very strict about who was allowed to take photography during the Second World War. You don't want to photograph anything, give secrets away, and all that. So you weren't allowed to. But there was a few there that special officers which had video cine type film cameras, to film, but it was basically for the War Department, to film some of maybe the German aircraft that are flying over, because they said some of the German aircraft flew over and they had these special glider bombs. I said, what's a glider bomb? He said they release it from the aircraft and it glides in like this to the ship and it hits the ship, but I said, never heard of glider bombs. He said, oh yeah, we had them, but they were quite secret, but they filmed them. So it's the War Department filming these glider bombs. So they had these cinefilm type cameras and were filming this strange event in the sky. It never got out. It never got released. It got buried away so quickly. You know, I tried to dig as much as I could and I just came up against a blank wall, a complete blank wall. Now, that was back in '96. There are probably not many surviving. Even Sid's passed away now since '96. There's probably not a single survivor left of the LST tank. I think it was 410 or something during the Second World War, a landing ship tank. Probably not a single survivor left now. So that story was just gone. And the only thing that remains of it, he's got his drawings. Because I said, Sid, draw it me. And he drew it. He drew what he appeared in the sky as to where the ship was. You can see this, and it took up the whole sky on one side, every part of it. You're going like this, looking, it was that large. For so many hours to watch it, never any sound, nothing else, nothing unusual, but perfect, like watching a TV screen, he said. And when I'm looking at the drawings, Dave, it was like, he was good at drawing and drawing these towers and flags on them, and it was all marble, and you can see a fountain in the street and the parade, and the only people on this parade are people on who are walking with usually a woman's with a guy, long dress, guy's got a hat on, smart looking, or the horse-drawn carriages.
Mm-hmm.
It's not befitting to 1943 whatsoever. And I'm thinking, where in the country would you have, like, well, some people might say, well, maybe there is some distant country out there that are backwards a bit in technologies and stuff. Fine. But how many do have marble cities? Not one. Never found a marble city yet. Just don't exist. And it wasn't just him who said they were marble. The other people I talked to said it was like marble, looking at marble. I could tell it was marble through the glisten. That they, and it's unbelievable how that. And I have no idea, Dave, what that is. Is it some strange apparition
Yeah.
manufactured? Was it some type of secret weapon that the Germans were using? Holographic imaging to make you go a little bit, what the hell is that? But why show an old, where did he get that footage from? Because there's no castle which is made of marble. It's as if like it was manufactured, some fantasy world.
Yeah, I would have
You
loved to have
know,
seen that. Yeah, that would have been
I
nice.
would have
I
absolutely loved to have seen that.
yeah, and then had
Fortunately, Sid's passed away now.
yeah,
But I checked him out and I checked his certificates and everything. He was who he said he was. He was where he said he was during the Second World War. And I even got hold of a book about just the landing ship tank, LST, because there was a book out there which they wrote about LST tanks, because they were incredible pieces of machinery, with these cannons on the back, fires an anchor to drag them back out to sea quite fast, because they just ram up onto the front of the. Then this thing goes down the front, the vehicles come flying off, and the next minute it goes up and they're being pulled back because of the cannon. Incredible piece of machinery. It was to get vehicles onto the land as quickly as possible. Now, they probably may have used this at Dunkirk and many other places, but it was incredible. But the thing is that when they were having this incident, they were on their own. They were not in Armada. There was no other ships around. They were on their own. And it lasted for 3 hours as they watched it. And they all
you
kept
would
coming up.
yeah.
Kept shouting down, saying, Jimmy, get up here and have a look at this. And everybody on the ship came up at some point to have a look.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
would think if it was German technology that was back engineered from ET or the real society in which they talk about
yeah.
that they,
How did he get a projection of something that doesn't exist, though? I mean,
yeah,
I've not found a marble castle.
well, they would have distracted them. They would have distracted them, then attacked them. There would have been something done.
Well,
Just,
yeah, I know.
yeah,
The
so
Germans did have this technology. I remember that the Germans' submarines had a crafty holographic system. They used to come up near the Dover Cliffs and they had a projection of the Dover Cliffs because you get a lot of fog sometimes there, and they project the Dover Cliffs over there. So as ships saw it, they think we're off course and head over there into deeper water, into waters which the U-boats were waiting for them.
oh,
It's very
yeah,
crafty, very
yeah.
crafty.
So there was an
You know?
action taken from a holograph like that, but the other one, what there wasn't any action taken, but that kind of reminds me. Like I said, I've seen these pictures and these videos from China. There were cities in the sky, and
Yeah.
they kind of looked like a reflection. They weren't detailed like what you're
No.
talking about a marble
Yeah, I
house
mean,
or
they
steamer.
do
Yeah,
exist.
yeah,
No, the temperature inversions, I've seen them, especially ones where you think it's a boat hovering on the ocean, and it isn't. It's just a temperature inversion. You just can't see it. a mirage in a sense of
Mirage.
speaking.
Yeah.
The grandest of all, though, is supposed to be is named Fata Morgana because it was considered quite magical. Now, Fata Morgana's, I think, was associated with the legend of King Henry. No, King. What was his name? Um, the famous in Robin Hood days,
Oh,
King Arthur.
yeah, King. Yeah,
King
King.
Arthur. Now,
Yeah, yeah,
King Arthur said to had Merlin,
yeah.
and Merlin was associated with Morgana, with Morgana. So that's where the name sort of comes from. The mystical side of this strange appearance in the sky became Fata Morgana. And it is incredible to see. And yes, you can see all sorts of strange things and even images of castles, but none of them look, in that type of material, like marble, and none of it disappeared. Not one case in the world has ever been documented that Fata Morgana acts in a way where it just takes little pieces of it every now and again. And it's very slowly. So you over a period of hours, just one piece, until you're left with like just one or two pieces in the
Mhm.
sky, and it's still active in there.
And
And
it's just so reminiscent of a matrix that we're in a
it
matrix
really
and there's a
does.
slip. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah,
you mentioned a word a while ago, and I heard it. I can't remember. You remember the story that it just come out. The word indigestible about the
yes.
information that who was that said that, Stephen?
Well, this
And
is this has happened recently because there's been a lot of talk about what the UFO phenomena consists of. Some people talking about, well, could it have an occult connection? Well, yes, there seems to be enough evidence to support that there has been an occult connection with some intelligences and the UFO phenomena over the years, be it from John Dee and Enochian magic, ritual practices to summon UFOs and entities like Crowley was, Jack Parsons, and hundreds. People used to just think it's just a handful of people. No, hundreds of people worldwide have been doing this, and some of them still continue to do so, actively doing these rituals and summoning, conjuring, those sort of things. And it does associate itself with these strange beings and the craft itself as well. So, some of the people at the top levels are suggesting we're dealing with more of a spiritual technology and occult physics. And these words have appeared on documentation. I mean, proper government documentation. You think, what the hell is occult physics? And what the hell is spiritual technology? What is that?
yeah,
Because I don't know what that is. But seemingly they've got a bit of an idea. And Jim Semivan came out, who he was part of the To the Stars Academy. He was there, and um, uh, he's had very high position in the U.S. government. And he recently came out only a few days back, I think he said, from what I know and what I've heard, the truth regarding the UFO subject is indigestible. Now, what's so indigestible, Dave? I mean, if it
that's
was simply that UFOs are coming from another planet, well, I'm sure we can digest that. Sure, because we've had this hypothesis so long now that people go, yeah, well, I accept that. Yeah, fine, okay. Not so much an indigestible thing. So, what is it that is so indigestible that they cannot tell the public what the UFO phenomena truly consists of? It makes you wonder, doesn't it? I mean, I
yes.
really don't know where they're going with this, but these people are they're in the know, but they're none of them are turning around and saying what they've heard. They're just not saying it. And I keep just thinking, I want to pat them on the back and say, just spit it out. Come on, spit it out.
Yeah.
And they won't do, Dave, but they have to give you these little cryptic things every now and again, little cryptic messages. It's just too indigestible. Well, I'm thinking to myself, wow, okay, well, if that's indigestible, it can't just be simply that they're traveling from another planet, because we all pretty much go, oh, well, yeah, we already realize that might be the case. Wouldn't it be very much a problem for people to digest? So what's indigestible? And plus, its timing of this is associated with lots of other people that's saying there is documentation and the referencing that they find certain words in documents now at US level, US government level, such as spiritual technology and occult physics. I don't know what they are. I really have no idea. I can have a wild guess. Spiritual technology. Well, the only time you're going to get things like this and occult physics is during the days of seances, experiments, some of which I've been involved in. Materialistic things appear. You might see apparitions, or you might see something which is forming into a person. Sometimes you might actually see strange figures that don't even look human, like the skull experiment, for an example, that
Hmm.
took place in the UK in the 90s. Occasionally, physical things appear which are structured, might even look mechanical. And you think to yourself, okay, it's real, you can feel it, you can touch it, and yet it's just been materialized, you know? And you're thinking to yourself, well, it's a physiological construct. It's a construct, but it's physical construct, not a non-physical construct. Now, I was talking to a friend of mine, Nick Kyle, who was involved in the skull experiment. And I was talking to him the other night in regarding some experiments that have been taking place at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories. Do you know where that is, Dave?
Yes. Hmm.
Heard of it? Yeah. A lot of secret stuff goes on there, but there are
Yes.
lots and lots
Yes.
of secret stuff. And they rumors are that they have been doing very strange paranormal experiments and things. And UFOs have even been seen above the building. Now, this has been confirmed by Hal Puthoff, who said, "Oh yes, you can always tell when they're not kind of doing their experiments. It's things in the sky above the laboratory." So it's as if they know UFOs, And you're thinking to yourself, "What are they getting themselves into here? What are they doing? What type of experiments?" According to the rumors, they were communicating with non-human intelligences, and it was about a small vase which they had, a glass vase. And this glass vase would slowly be seen to be moving across the table. And on one occasion, they went to try and pick it up, and the hands went right through it, and they were like shocked because they looked for something quickly, and they could fire a pen light at it, and it would bounce light back. It was reflective. Also, they shined with light on it, and it created a shadow on the table.
Mm.
You're thinking, well, it's casting a shadow and it bounces light off it as if it's really a physical object there. But they couldn't pick it up, Dave. The hands went right through it. And they felt no coldness going through it. There was no strange electromagnetic fields and energies recorded, no radiation or anything unusual, no magnetic anomalies. Just the fact that when they put their hand through it, they didn't feel cold or anything. Didn't feel anything, no tingling, nothing. Except the only thing they noticed was there was a very, very thin film around their fingers. Very thin film, as
That's
if,
strange.
as it passed through. A few minutes later, it's back solid again. Now it's as if the phenomenon has gone, I'm looking at you. Could be anything. Could be a pen. Could be anything. And you go and pick your pen up, you can't pick the pen up. Hand goes right through it. It's real, you know. But and then they somehow made it physical again. You go pick it up. Oh, it's physical now. This is what happened with this vase. It's as if like the was phenomenon was demonstrating to the scientists that we can manipulate your physical world, objects in your physical environment. So when they are ETs are walking through walls, Dave, is it ETs that are manipulating their being to be able to phase and go through a wall, or is it the wall itself that they've just affected and they've walked right through the wall? Because if they can do this to a vase where it looks real, it casts shadow, it casts light on it, reflection, put your hand right through it, is as if it's not even there, and then next minute it's solid again for them. There's a demonstration that they can do this. Then they could do that with a wall and just say, this is the area of the wall that we're walking through, and I'm just going to phase right through it and walk straight into your bedroom through the wall.
Is this
You
is
know,
this is this beyond extraterrestrial, Stephen, this
Well, they
technology?
do believe they were talking or communicating with what they refer to as NHI, non-human
Mhm.
intelligence. Now, that does cover a lot of things,
Yeah,
you know, and I think they're happy to call it that because I don't think they like to use the word aliens anymore because they don't know for sure if they are aliens or what we're dealing with. Are we dealing with fallen ones? Are we dealing with angelic beings or something a bit more nefarious? We just don't know. But they all will all fall into the NHI, non-human intelligence, because they're all non-human and it's some form of intelligence. So I think they're comfortable with saying non-human intelligence. NHI is the new terminology they tend to be using now. Now the thing is that that's indigestible right there. How the hell you get physics to do that is
mhm.
beyond me. If they can manipulate our space, time, and physics, or our reality of what is solid and what isn't, what hope do we have? We have no hope in
Yeah,
trying to fathom out the capabilities of this. It's so beyond normal. This is not just a nuts and bolts metal craft, coming from some distant place, and it's just a craft. This and these beings are just biologic beings. There's much more to it, Dave. So now you're getting the spiritual aspect. This is what they're all talking about at the top end, the spiritual aspect. Because I think you mentioned it to me a little
yeah,
bit earlier, didn't you?
yeah. I think there's also, I know myself, when I'm followed and I see strange things, it seems like they know where I'm at, when I'm going to be there. They have control of time and they have control of
Yeah,
matter, like you're
yeah,
saying, Stephen. So
yeah.
yeah, that all.
They do,
To me,
and they have even during our experiments even communicated with us to say we're where we're going to be on this day in 19 months' time and what we're doing. And I said, yeah, right, okay. And whatever happened, that sequence of events on that day, I'm at that place and I'm doing exactly what they said I was doing. And that's happened at least maybe 6 times. They can see what I'm going to be doing in the future, where I'm going to be. So if they want to meet you on an abandoned road, buddy, they can certainly be there in waiting because they know you're going. They know that,
they did.
I don't think they have to monitor you as you're doing it
Yeah,
day by day.
yeah,
I think they can see ahead, mate, and
yeah.
see where you're going, what you're doing.
They did. They knew I was going, what particular town I was going in a couple of months or 3 months ago, but also through the other things that I've seen in my past. They were there at a certain time, and I don't know when they're going to show up. And a lot of people say, "Well, I haven't seen a UFO." I said, "Well, you never know when they're going to show up, but you just
Well,
have to
yeah,
be thinking about them." And
exactly.
what you've been talking about the last 10 minutes is mind-boggling. I mean, this is what's indigestible, I guess, what
Well,
they're saying, Stephen.
this
Yeah,
is the indigestible bit
yeah.
because I said to you, I was talking to my friend Nick Kyle, who was part of the Skull experiment, and when I was telling him about these experiments at the National Liverpool the laboratories, yeah,
Mhm.
I was telling Nick about this, yeah, Livermore laboratories, the experiments, and he said quietly that exact thing happened in Skull, and I didn't know that. I said, "What do you mean?" He said it happened with the glass on the table. We couldn't pick the damn thing up until 1 minute. It is physical. I said, "You're joking?" He said, "No." I said, he has not told people that much about that because I don't think people can wrap their heads around it, Dave.
I know.
That's why he's not said about it,
I'm in deep
you know?
thought about what you've been talking about. Also, it's this.
Well,
It's it.
I mean, if
It
they
is
can,
something.
if they've got the ability to turn a vase, we wouldn't know by looking at it.
Hmm.
We had no idea until you try and reach out and grab it and you realize it goes right through your hand. If they can do that with a physical vase and turn it non-physical, they can do it to your wall in your bedroom and walk straight through that wall, or take you right through the ceiling if they wanted to, because they'll just say, "I'm going to do this, do it on the ceiling just as we did it on the vase," and it's not, it doesn't mean anything. You just straight through it,
So
you
nothing
know.
is really matter. It doesn't really exist except it's a frequency, and we're involved in it. I guess everything
Yeah,
is a
but we're
frequency.
stuck though within that frequency
Yeah,
area, and everything is physical and real to us.
yeah,
But if they're not, they can manipulate it, because sometimes it's the physical world is physical to them sometimes, because people have said we saw an ET walking across this field. Well, if it's walking on solid ground, physical solid ground, then it's interacting with our physical environment. They've been seen to push things or open things or make contact with things in the environment, pick things up, look at them. So they can be physical, just like you and me.
Hmm.
But with a little one of that, they can go, now I'm not. But you
Yeah.
wouldn't know to look at them
It
because you
all,
can't tell.
yeah, Stephen, it all swings back to a matrix of some
It
kind,
really
a
does, doesn't it?
holographic. Yeah. Now you mentioned James Fox at a conference, and also I wanted you to talk about that new movie that Spielberg's going to come out with soon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know
Interesting.
anything about that and how that come about, Stephen?
Well, what? Which, the Spielberg film or
Yeah.
the press conference?
Well, both of them, Fox,
Okay.
James Fox
Yeah.
conference,
Well,
and
James
also.
James Fox. This is really interesting, and I know James. He's a very good friend of mine, and he's a nice guy, and he's been doing some great work in Virginia. In Brazil, in regarding the Virginia UFO incident that took place
Mhm.
in 1996, regarding these strange beings with small, large heads, three bulbous things on its head, horns or lumps, big red eyes, leathery type brown skin, the size of a child. Seen, witnessed, and not just one of them, a few of these things. It was a very, very big case, and it was very interesting. Now, James Fox went and did a documentary. He went there and he filmed and he talked to people trying to find out. He's trying to find out, is there any video footage available of this entity? Because one of them was captured and taken to the local hospital. And they refused to see it. So they ended up taking it to another hospital. And eventually they got it into a hospital. And this entity, though, came into this person, this soldier. He saw it running across the road. So he got out and he grabbed hold of it. It's not, it's not very strength wise, nothing to them. Because they always tend to be very slender, don't they? There's no
Mhm.
strength in them. I think they use all this.
Right.
And he just grabbed it, picked it up, he had hold of it, and he got in the car and they took it to this hospital. But he eventually dies some time later, in hospital, because they believed he came into physical contact with a being, that he was infected somehow, and it literally diminished his ability to fight germs, you know, and his immune system was completely shot to the point where he died very quickly, of just like of a common cold or something like that. He had no immune system, and they kept pumping him full of everything they possibly could do to keep him alive. All the strongest antibiotics you could lay your hands on, nothing worked. And there was a complete mystery. But he came into physical contact with it. Um, Now, there's a sulfur smell associated to this entity, and it stunk the hospital room out. It took them months to get rid of that smell. But we've had these reports like sulfur smells before
Mhm.
associated to some of these things. The Falcon Lake incident as well was a sulfur smell. It's like the same thing in the hospital. Sulfur smell off this guy who got vented. He was stood next to a UFO on the ground and it burst out through a vent, this hot air, and he ended up a vent shape on him. But he was really poorly and he was literally sweating out sulfur in the hospital on his clothes. And yeah, it's literally coming out of his own pores of his skin
Mm.
when he got too close to this object. And they had said the same thing. It took them months to rid the smell out of that room, that hospital room. Very, very same sort of thing that was said. So of course James is he's talked to these doctors, and this doctor said, there was a spent when it was filmed. Somebody had a cine film camera and he filmed so much of it, maybe only a minute or so, but yes, he's on the hunt for that. So he's been talking with people and he's been back and he's talked with people and trying to find out, does this exist, and a few other more witnesses have come forward, enough for him to release an amended version of moment of contact. It's just about an extra maybe 20 half an hour longer, 20 minutes half an hour longer, where he's just interviewing more people and stuff like that. But it's kind of an extra longer version and special edition of it released, which he's just released it. And he wanted to do a press conference about the people and promoting that that secondary updated documentary. And he did this on January the 20th. Okay. Now, what's really interesting is whilst this is going on, I'm in discussions with probably Brazil's most prominent, one of the most prominent researchers there, called Ronnie Vinay. He's lectured it really up at the very top sort of government levels, in regarding UFOs at these special seminars they put together. He's very well known. And he says, and he believes, that is another aspect of this story that is totally being ignored. Because the westernized version of this is that it's all aliens. All UFOs is all aliens. A UFO came down, crashed, and aliens scattered through the town of Virginia. And that's it. Nothing prior, nothing post. Just that. And
Mm.
he's saying, no, 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 no. There was a lot that was going on before. And some of this involves very rich people at high levels conducting very specialized ritual magic practices to conjure a phenomenon. And this is linked to that in some way.
And they have
And I'm,
knowledge. They have knowledge from the extraterrestrials somehow or another, and
yeah,
they're being in contact with them. Now, this
that's
new
it.
movie, as we move along, I
Oh,
guess.
let me just say this first,
Okay,
though,
yeah,
Dave.
all right, go ahead,
This
Stephen.
now Ronnie Vernay, he's got his own documentary coming out about the Virginia case, his side of the story, right? Who comes from Brazil, who was there at the time and doing the research, not an American, not somebody from outside their country, and it was supposed to be released on January the 20th, but because James Fox press conference took place on the same day of January the 20th, it never got shown in Brazil. So it's going to be shown, I believe, the 30th or the 31st of January in Brazil. He's releasing Ronnie Vernay releasing his documentary, which will be completely, I believe, a different story in
Really?
regards how this came about, which is very, very interesting how that collides. January the 20th, because it's the 30th anniversary. So
So, would the Brazilian have more validity in this case, Stephen?
I would think so. Because you're talking around about the time, you're talking about boots on the ground and you're doing the researching.
Hmm.
You're not some guy from another country. It turns up 20, 30 years later to try and find out what's going on. People won't talk. Some people, back then, he found out stuff, which is very, very interesting. Now, I've talked with Ronnie, and Ronnie said he's quite happy to discuss with me. Once the documentary comes out, he's quite happy to discuss with me regarding, what he knows. And it's going to be released January the 30th or the 31st in Brazil on a national Brazil television. The main global
Hmm.
network of TV there in Brazil is going to be shown, and it's very, very intriguing as to
Yeah.
there's two sides to this story, Dave. It starts to get very intriguing.
Yeah, and you know that the South Americans, Central America, and even Mexico, these people see a lot of things,
Oh
and
yeah,
they take video, but sometimes I think it could be AI or whatever. But getting to, I guess we're running out of time here. I'm running out of
Spielberg.
time. Yeah, Spielberg on his new movie. You think, Stephen, that he didn't rub elbows with top
Well,
military people?
he did a lot of the filming in Jersey at the
Mhm.
time of the drones were being seen in
Yeah.
Jersey. I
Hmm.
think Spielberg wanted to film a real one and put it in his film. That's what I think.
Hmm.
I think there might be something seen in that film where there's something in the sky and it'll turn out to be real, absolute real footage in a movie of incident taking place because they were all over the place in New Jersey, weren't they? And he was there filming this. Intriguingly, it's also released at a very specific time. Age of Disclosure first came out, the
Right.
documentary, and this now is called Disclosure Day,
Yeah. Yeah.
D Day, D Day, Disclosure Day. I'm thinking, you read between the lines, Dave.
He
There's something to this, but
oh
he's going down. I know this movie has got much more to do with about consciousness with these beings. More so, a bit different than Close Encounter days, because now he's about a lot more about the consciousness communications and things like that.
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. In fact,
Yeah.
it's going to be a very very interesting movie, I think.
Yeah, I like Spielberg's work, but also I know that he's on the inside with
Oh yeah,
all the other billionaires. Yeah, we're approaching now the hour or so mark, and I know you need to get some rest, UK time, and I've got another interview in about 30 minutes. So,
oh my God.
and then
Right, okay.
I got this technical problem I'll straighten out, but we'll get that done. You've been listening to The Strange Reality with Dave Emmons and my special guest Stephen Mera. He's my special guy, my special guest, and I really admire. Oh man, we talked some deep stuff here, Stephen. You got me thinking now about all this.
Yeah, even
Wow,
I'm still thinking, Dave. You know,
yeah, this
never
ended.
end.
It might give me indigestion thinking about it.
Something
Indigestible.
indigestible.
Yeah, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. You always do a good
You're
job.
welcome,
I
Dave.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so
Good
much for
night,
having me on.
everybody, from the Strange Reality.